All right, welcome, guys. It's nice to see all of you back. So, welcome to Ignition Lab Session 2. So, this Ignition Lab, we have incredible speakers. You guys got the bio, right? And stuff, so you guys know what to expect. Now, what's super important is that the stuff that you're going to learn today, you're going to actually use like over the break. This is the longest break we have between sessions because we have the huge winter break. So, unlike the other, like session 3 and 4 and 5 are all like a few weeks apart, and then you have the pitch competition. This one is going to have like months where you guys can, if you're not disciplined, just kind of like forget about things, let things slide. And then this is where there might be a little bit of drop off. So those of you that are really focused and dedicated, we'll see you back on session 3 in the beginning of February. And you guys will do the market research and you'll learn a ton. It's when you're going to go out and we're going to give you the tools to do that and actually test your product with like your demographic. You'll figure out, does that make sense? Like who's interested, what they might have questions about, and you'll use that information to really fine tune things and then come back. And I want to remind you guys, or maybe you don't know this, but if you go through the whole program and you do the competition, then you get a certificate, which you can actually put on your professional resume, right? So it's kind of like an internship experience, and I'll help you with that. Obviously, I'm a professional career counselor, so I will help you show how to articulate that and look really great. So it's a really incredible program. I'm really psyched that you're here. I wanted to tell you that. Before we get into the first part with James, who's going to walk you through the homework, then we're going to have both of the speakers who are here, and they're also going to be mentors to you guys as well. So every person that's a speaker here, you then have the opportunity to reach out to if you thought they were wonderful. Like they volunteer their time because they care about you guys and they want you to be successful, and you have that opportunity to reach out to them. And with the information packet, we'll give you their emails and so forth. Does that make sense? Great. All right. So thank you, guys. And Shibani, you want to just give a quick announcement?
Hey, guys. I'm hoping you all, we need this? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you all checked in. The reason is we just want to know if any teams are dropping out. I'm just going to be passing around this. Just write your name. Just write your ID. And this is not for any crazy purpose. We're just collecting data on the demographics of who's a part of this, whether you're a grad student, whether you have a degree in design or architecture or interior design. So we need this information, and most of you kind of filled out the Excel file that I'd sent, but I still need your student ID. So just take 2 minutes during this. I'm just gonna pass this, your name and your student ID, and I think we should be good.
Great.
That's about it. Yeah.
Thanks, Shibani.
Of course.
All right, James, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. All right. By show of hands, how many of you actually did the homework? All right, cool. So we've got all of your presentations lined up. The purpose of last session, as you know, was kind of conceptualizing the idea and then looking at who your competition potentially was for your new venture. Today, it's all about validation. So you kind of have an idea of who you are, what you're building. Hopefully you know who you are, but what you're building, what you're creating. The next step is actually going to be figuring out, does it work? Is this an idea that could potentially work? So we have Brian Ong here, who all of you got the profile. He is actually going to walk you through some of the design elements and how you process through branding and like, what is your visual identity? What is your brand identity? Then we have Jonas Gunther, who is an expert on market validation. He's been through Techstars. He was recommended to us by them as the person who's been through their last few cohorts and who is the absolute best at market validation. So what he's going to do is he's going to walk you through the process of testing. So how do you test to actually make sure your idea works? Then, over the very long break we have, we're actually going to want you guys to go out and validate this idea. So go out and interview 100 people. We're going to give you a format for the questions. all of those things, but you're actually going to have to go and test your idea to see if it works. I'll let Jonas talk about it later. He went and stood, I believe, in Union Square and handed out samples to test his idea.
Spirulina, right?
Spirulina. Love algae. But this is kind of where we're going to start going. So you can see how this is starting to form, right? Where we started out with what your idea is. Now we're going to, does it actually work? Next, we're going to go into prototyping and building a real concept. Some of you already have prototypes. Some of you already have concepts. We're going to work on making those marketable. Then I'm going to talk to you about, I've had a lot of questions about financing, how you actually pay for all of this, how you structure it, and how you make it so that you can actually earn money from your venture. As opposed to, how many of you read about WeWork since the last class? No, not everyone? Wow. People are apparently avoiding garbage fires here. Go, when you leave, look up WeWork. Read all about it. You could read for a week and probably not run out of articles. Basically what happened, they were about to file for their IPO. They're one of the largest companies in their space in the world. They have over 600,000 desks of rentable space around the world in 32 different countries. And they filed their S1. And turns out, not only are they not making money, their costs are scaling at 2 times the rate as their revenue, and their founders wildly out of control. Since then, they've gone from $40 billion valuation to 8, but the 8 is also not real, so they're likely worth nothing. Please go read about it. It's fascinating. You're going to love it, but it's also a really good example of why Session 4 exists in this course.
What's session 4?
Session 4, financing. Financing your innovation, financing and business structure. It's going to be so much fun, guys. It's going to be a fun-filled 3 hours of spreadsheets and talking about napkin math. You're going to love it. February 28th.
So remember, this session, our next session is February 3rd, I believe.
Yeah.
And then it's 3 weeks later.
So then 24th.
So February 24th. Then we have one that's another like middle of, or then early March.
Early March and then mid-April.
4th.
Yeah.
Is the
Early
finish.
April. All right, good.
4th, yeah. Because the next week is Easter weekend, so that's why we have to change it.
All right, cool. See, I know the schedule. I'm with you. All right. We've got a bunch of videos. All right, is there anybody who would like me to show their video first? All right, Brella. You named it Brello. Cool. That's convenient. I like your location. This is great. Please play. Come on. You can do it, Internet.
Hi, I'm Fiona.
And I'm Jake. Let me ask you, have you ever been caught in the rain without an umbrella?
And how does it feel once you finally remember to bring an umbrella and it doesn't end up raining?
At Brella, we're trying to make sure those things don't happen.
We are an umbrella sharing service that provides high-quality umbrellas for a small fee for when you need them most. Simply create an account through our app and find the umbrella closest to you.
Our goal at Brella is to make sure that you never have to buy, lose, forget, or steal another umbrella again.
So what are you waiting for? Join Umbrella and don't get caught unprepared in the rain again.
All right. What do everybody think? Good? I liked it. It was polished. It was nice. You were definitely out in public, which I appreciate.
It was great. It was really genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. Next time, have an umbrella with you.
Have a rain machine.
All right. Now I'm just going to go backwards because this is the last. That was the last one. So.
Hey, this is Woody, industrial design student from Pratt. I am introducing our team's new product, FreeStack, a construction toy with a unique character that nobody else in the market offers. FreeStack is designed to achieve simple and fast construction while remaining flexible and shape freely after construction, which will provide more playability for children. I now invite you to join us to help bring Freestack to the market and to encourage children to unleash their imagination and creativity.
All right. Clap. We should clap. Woody, great. It was not outside. Go outside. All right. Next. I'm going to mow through these pretty quickly, so we're not going to have...
Roughly 1/3 of the world's total population is displaced right now. Born out of a human-centered design approach, AMI is an app for refugees to help them integrate in unfamiliar environments. It acts as a digital friend by providing information about asylum requests, housing, opening a bank account, transportation, learning the local language, and employment help, education, and connects them with others in their area.
All right. Well done. That was a massive improvement over the last one, which is awesome. Love to see that. And I really like the fact that you were in a very, very public place. That's awesome. And so why did I want you all to be in a public place? Can anyone guess? Come on. Yeah, 90% of the time you're pitching your idea, you're walking into a room with a bunch of people you don't know who are judging you harshly, and it's going to be really, really uncomfortable. So where would you be most uncomfortable in a natural setting pitching your idea into the ether? Outdoors. In a place where you have a bunch of people that are going to look at you like you're nuts while you're doing it. If you can hold it together doing that outside a number of times, you're going to be so much better off when it comes to actually pitching in front of investors, in front of people who you really do want to impress. So the whole purpose of this was to make you uncomfortable in your pitch environment, which generally I guess you'd want to be comfortable, but I don't. Not at all. I found Woody. He was hiding before. All right. Let's talk about AR.
Can you imagine that when you go to Central Park and you find aliens trying to destroy the city, and you become the warriors to protect the whole world? In my game, everything will be true. With the technology of augmented reality and location-based service, you can create your own user experience and find enemies, protect the world in the mixed reality environment. So my game will give you a second life.
Awesome. It's a little cheating public. You're on a terrace, which isn't necessarily public. Like, sure, I could hear traffic. That's a wall. So I want them walking down the street. Standing in front of a flower stand, that means I had to ask somebody to let them pitch in front of their flower stand. That's fantastic. Like, that makes me really happy. So, yeah, outside is great. More outside, like with people around you, is better. It was also good. I think there's some work tweaking on the story. So, like, how you're telling the story, making it a cohesive flow. Yes, you gave a great example of, like, man, how would it be to, like, fight aliens in Central Park? Great. I think cohesively filling that in a way where people understand that what your company is about, like what you're building and the game, is really, really going to be the killer thing for you. All right.
Coming to college as a freshman or a transfer student, I'm pretty sure all of you have searched out campus life or student dorm room why the Korean student organization of FIT-SVA, Pat Parsons, have come together to create a YouTube channel to feature the student life at each schools in New York. Through Ignition Lab, we plan to build up our YouTube channel.
Please breathe. Just breathe. Like, go through it, take some breaths. One would be, no, it was really good. I think just remember when you're in front of people, the reason why I want you to do this again and again and again in public is because I do want you to be very comfortable. So because none of you sit when you're talking or you're explaining a thing. If I'm explaining to you a sandwich, I don't say, well, you take 2 pieces of bread and you put some chicken in the bread and then you put some mayonnaise and you put bacon and blah, blah, blah. It's not how people talk. So the more you're able to mirror the way your people you're talking to are talking, the more comfortable they're going to be, which means you need to be twice as comfortable as they are in the situation. So put yourself in uncomfortable situations pitching. Like, all of you did amazing. Everyone I've seen here, I'm really proud of. Like, it's awesome that you went outside, you did this in front of people for the most part, and you guys really put yourself out there. I think the next step is doing it again and again and again. Like, this was just the first time. Every single time you should be going out and doing this. Again, I learned how to public speak by taking my phone and walking around Brooklyn for 3 hours like this, speaking to it. Just speaking. I was basically filibustering my phone in the middle of Brooklyn. People were walking past me. I had one guy yell at me. It was great. Like, do that, please. That is a green bus. All right. Nice. All right. That was crazy well rehearsed. Like, really well rehearsed and really good. And I love that you were outside and there was a part of me, and just a small part, that was wishing somebody walked in between you and the camera. But, because then that would have been interesting to see how that threw you off. Really good. Really good. I liked it. Yeah, this was Fast Cut, I think is the name. Is it? Yeah. So yeah, it's really. Oh, is this gonna play? Let's see. Here we go.
Our brand sells playing cards and.
Where's the video? All right. This was no video? All right. If this is yours, please go back and re-record it with video.
We target an underground culture which is magic and cardistry. They like to collect fancy playing cards and take nice photos and videos of some tricks with matching streetwears and post it on social medias to attract more followers and socialize with other magicians. We want to start from this underground culture and then attract more people who like street fashion.
All right. I really wish there was a video. It did sound like you're outside, but I wish there was a video. But it sounded good. I think that, again, it's the same thing with the story where it's telling a cohesive story, beginning, middle, end, that whole bit. All right.
Hi, this is Lucy and Fiona. Our mission is to create a community for fun, art, and self-care.
We create a wow moment for commercial spaces, and we engage local artists and makers. The problem of opening your retail business is to have amazing Instagrammable moments. We solve this by providing a modular installation. On the other hand, the problem of being an artist or designer is to have a stage to display your work. We're curating your work at these retail spaces. Our theme is to make a space for fun, art, and self-care.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounded like you were outside, but that could have been another terrorist shot. I don't know. But it was good. I just think we got to continue practicing the stories. Like telling these stories to yourself, writing it out, telling it again, writing it out again. Figure out what the best way for you to pitch this is. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's if you can't talk about it, it's never going to be real because you're going to be your best salesperson. Like, I've been selling things, talking to people about things, building businesses for the last decade, and I can tell you, every single company I met that couldn't explain their product went under. Everyone to a single company. So that's why I'm harping on this so much, because you are your best advocates. You guys are going to be the ones who really make this happen or don't, and which is why we're doing so much with this. And it will continue. I think it's going to be another no video. Yep. All right.
As freelancers, we earn less than our peers, and we often cannot find our clients. So we propose a platform for both architects and the owner, gathering competition information and create a faster bidding process, and create a forum for architects to share each other. If markets were solely for the architecture practice, then you can post your portfolios and enter competitions.
All right. That was inside, but it did sound like it was a fairly public place. So I'm torn on that. Probably a classroom of some type where you knew most of the people coming in and out. Again, let's try to be outside for this. Outside in public. Other than that, it was good. Just remember, introduce yourself. Like, a lot of these are coming through, and the people that introduce themselves, you have immediate impact with that. So that's one of the things that I'd like everyone to work on for next time, because we're doing this again next time. It's going to be so much fun. Yeah.
You know, you remind me of a radio, either radio or television program called End of the Story. Someone would tell something in the news, very briefly, terse, and always end with a, that's the end of the story, and it would make you want to learn more about it. And it was very, I'll try and find the name if it's something you are interested in.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. What do we got? We got Swapple. Maybe. I walked away right when I was...
Have you ever risked that you can easily exchange a lot of things for something you actually need?
Ever find that box of fidget spinners sitting on the back of your closet?
We have an app that will easily let you browse through items in your software in your local community for items you no longer need. Not only are you reducing waste and carbon footprint while saving money, but you're also getting something in return that provides value to you. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Armand.
And we're Swapple.
Awesome. It was outside. The cuts were interesting. I try to tell it as one cohesive thing without cutting it. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was good. I think yeah, if you can do all of that in one take, fantastic. But that's honestly the biggest challenge. Like, it's doing this, as you guys figured out from the fact that you did this, is really hard. Doing this well is really hard. Doing this well in public is even harder.
It's also beautiful. What is that in the background?
Well, that's in front of PMC.
That's beautiful, yeah.
That's awesome. It was also funny watching the shadows change after every cut. All right. Whoa. All right. Here we go. Are you gonna?
James, we're going to try to run that video because we were unable to do that.
Holy crap. All right. Well, we'll get.
Did you try playing that movie file?
Yeah, I just clicked on it a few times. It did not. It is not being my friend. Is it zipped? It might be zipped. Yeah, I think it's zipped. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, it's. That's fine. 122 megabytes. What is this?
Hopefully not a virus.
All right. Well, that's not happening. Cool. All right. Those are all of our videos. That was good. It was nice and quick. Who has questions?
That's, Karen, that's yours. Which is mine? The one that we're trying to see if we could play.
That we're trying to download.
Yeah.
It is not being our friend at this exact moment in time. All right. Looks like Brian just got here while he's getting settled. What questions do you guys have? Like, what came up over the last week? What about competitive analysis? Any of the things? Ask. Go. Please.
There was like in the phrasing on the homework assignment, it's market size analysis. Then under the sort of like the rubric of the market size analysis, that had nothing to do with the size of the market. I don't know. I feel like I did it wrong. I don't know. I tried to assess like 4 or 5 user groups and like sort of see how many people would be within that market.
I'm gonna have to look at that again, because if two things got conflated, totally sorry about that. But well, no, it would be very much my fault. But yeah, from that side, I'll look at it. But it sounds like you did the right thing. So yeah, so what we're gonna do this time, because I may have done that, may have sent out the wrong thing. If that is the case, then I'll send you out the rubric for market size analysis, which that's going to be going out and figuring out how many people are in your target demo. So how many potential customers you could have for your idea. And then it's going to be looking at what your total acquirable market is, and then what your serviceable market is, i.e., how many people can you actually help? So we need to figure, that's going to be a big part of the coming 3 months. So you've got lots of time, so it can be very easily be fit in. So that's good catch. I'll look at it and get that back out. But on the competitive analysis stuff, I definitely sent out that rubric. Yeah. So that, how many of you were able to do that? Like, look at your competitors, look at their size, look at what they've built. How many of you did that by show of hands? All right.
Another question was that they were sort of like, once you identify your competitors, there's like find out who founded it, there's that. So
Yeah.
in our case, I know like everybody has specific, everybody sort of has their own situation, but our competitors, well, there are 2 competitors in like the history of rental umbrella services, and they're both bankrupt. So like those are competitors that would like occupy our space, and then competitors that I sort of like extrapolate to think like, yeah, people can get umbrellas from other places, so our competitors would be those people. But you can get an umbrella from Amazon, so we were sort of like, do we go into the profiling of Amazon
they're not relevant except for the fact they very much are. Like, the reason why that's so open-ended is because your competition is they're not just the people that you're competing against. Like, you need to compete against the dead bodies in your field. Like, any companies before you that have failed, find as much information as you can about what they did and what they did wrong. Because number one, there'll be lessons there for things that you could do better. Like, why those companies did their unit economics not work? Were they not able to raise funds? If they weren't able to raise funds, you got to figure out why they weren't able to raise funds. So looking at the failures is more important almost than looking at your existing competition. From an existing competition standpoint, you got to look at what the general size of your competition is. If you're entering into a super crowded market with 40 different startups trying to do the exact same thing as you, that's really hard. And that's going to be an uphill battle in an already commoditized space. And because there are 40 companies already doing it, you're going to be fighting the same battle at a small scale with all 40 of those competitors. If you have a lot of sky between you and your nearest competitor, i.e. you're going up against a mega corporation, you're going up against a $30 billion corporation, you know what? You have some room to run, but then you have the real possibility that 6 months down the road, they release an app update that wipes you out. So it's looking at your competition is a great way to start assessing your risks and the opportunities you have, which is part of the reason why I made that so broad, because I wanted you to not only look at the dead companies in your field, but I wanted you to look at the largest company. How could they compete against you? I wanted you to look at are you going to be competing against a bunch of VC funding companies, people with unlimited money? Like, this is all very important as far as how you structure your business and how you structure your outreach. Because if you're against a bunch of VC funded companies, I'm sorry, you need to raise VC. That's just kind of how that works. But if you have room to run, then you could actually run and build something really cool without ever having to raise a dollar. Most businesses should be run without ever having to raise a dollar, which is something you'll hear from me again and again and again. All right. Any other questions? Everybody did something approximating that? All right. Do we all feel comfortable with that?
With what?
With the homework, like the competitive analysis, do you all feel like you have a solid handle on what that was and the purpose behind it?
Guys, if you have any questions about the homework or competitive analysis, please ask. And there's no such thing as a bad question, no judgment. If you have a question, probably someone else has that question and they're thankful that you're brave enough to ask.
I am a 100% judgment-free zone. I know it seems the opposite, but I very much do not judge anything. I just sound harsh. Yeah. A good way to find failures is actually most of them leave their websites up for another year or two afterwards. So just Googling, honestly. Looking at Google, looking at Crunchbase, because Crunchbase or AngelList is a great way to find notable failures, because most companies, I know for me, I still have profiles for FormTap up on all of those companies, on all of those websites, because I was just afterwards, I couldn't bring myself to take it down. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. So those will stay. Most people leave those up, and it's so you can go in, look it up. If there are news articles, PR, that lives forever. So if they ever wrote an article, they're pretty easy to find. It's just knowing what terms you're going to search for. And for that, you're probably going to know best as to,
Even if the website's currently down, you could probably find it on one of the archives that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of web archives. So you can pull back up to 5 years, I think, on most of them.
James, what's a web archive? How do
There,
you access it?
there's an entire industry built on saving all the data on the internet for a period of time so that people can go back and research it, mostly for marketing purposes. We'll have to look it up and find one.
We can include that in the packet.
Like, yeah, we'll include one in the packet. That's another reason why I had you look up the founder, because most founders love telling their failure stories, and they'll write blog posts about their failure stories. They'll write, "Oh, we were looking for funding and we couldn't get it," or I hired this person, they turned out to be a total idiot. Like, there are a number of different stories you'll see, and a lot of times those are written by the founders as a part of their personal branding. So once you've found the company, look up who founded it, see if they wrote anything about it, look up key employees, see if they wrote anything. There will be information out there. Somebody wrote something for every one of the tens of thousands of dead startups that exist. More questions? Go. There are more. This entire room, there were 2 questions.
Was the homework easy for you guys, or was it challenging?
It was kind of challenging.
Yeah. Why was it challenging?
I've never had to do anything like that before.
Yeah.
I don't come from like a business background at all.
Nice.
So it was interesting.
Yeah.
Educating myself on all the terms, and just reading through everything.
Well, when Carl and I were working through creating this entire curriculum, we realized that this is a creative school. Like, there are a lot of creative people here and in this room. And one of the things we really wanted to do was make all of you uncomfortable for as much of the time as we could, by putting you very much, and by uncomfortable, I mean put you in the business mindset. Like, you're building a business. You have to be ready to build this business, which is why we incorporate so much financing, so much pitching, so much actually doing the business side of this.
The other thing I'll add to that is we want this program to be valuable to you, even if you don't end up launching this product, or even if you don't end up being an entrepreneur. We want you guys to have things that a lot of the design schools don't give you, like financial literacy knowledge and those kinds of tools that'll help you in life, not just entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the...
People skills, presentation skills,
Yeah.
all of those things as well.
Have you guys ever heard the phrase that every 10 years Silicon Valley invents the bus?
No.
So the bus, they're everywhere. Everyone has one. But every 10 years or so, a company will be like, what if we democratized transportation and made a way so that people could gather in one place and all travel together to a destination? And we're going to monetize it, and that's going to be our startup. That's a bus. And it's like Airbnb when they announced, oh, we're going to have a bunch of Airbnbs, but in one building. That's a hotel. Like, it's... The idea is... And part of the reason we do this is so that you're not reinventing the same wheel over and over again. So those failures, again, that's part of the reason why we build this toolbox and give you all of these things that may not apply to what you're currently doing, but you'll definitely use them again down the road. All right. So yeah.
You mentioned before the advantage of speaking outdoors and all your reasons for asking us to do it. I've had the experience lately, exploring the interiors of buses and trains and talking to people about, more asking them if I could take their picture of how they're holding the bar, the kind of package they're bringing on, is there room for the baby carriage, and so on. And it's really been an adventure talking to strangers.
Yeah.
Not only because most of the time they're very willing, they understand the goal and they contribute.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, sometimes you learn about how they solve this problem in a foreign country because people
Yep.
traveling, and sometimes people are too shy, or they have political reasons, or they have a discomfort with a certain culture, and you're talking with them, and it can change the whole spirit of the.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like, do that. I have a former colleague. She works at a venture firm here in the city. She one day was walking around and she found an empty picture frame, like a normal empty picture frame, about 3 feet by 4 feet. She went and stood in Washington Square Park with that, got her camera, went and filmed people telling their startup stories for a week and a half. She just went there in the middle of the day, stood there filming people. They got, I think, a few deals out of it. But more importantly, she went out there and stood and just talked to randos for a week and a half. Doing that is really powerful. Like, doing that is a great way to get you comfortable with your idea. And again, we'll talk about a lot more about this in another hour and a half or so. But yeah, that's a really powerful way to start. And it looks like we got a video. All right. Are you just not going to play when I click? Okay, cool. Wow, this is painful.
Tourist wand, an alternative to the traditional right-angled hairdryer, is lightweight and puts the hand in a position that is healthy and less tiring to use than the traditional hairdryer.
Lastly, the controls are located on both the left and right hand wings of the adjustable wristband, so that the hairdryer can be used by either a left-handed or right-handed user.
Awesome. So that was very much a product tutorial. Would love to hear a bit more about the story and how and what your plans are within this. So that was very much like, this is my product, this is what it does. I want to hear a lot about, like, why does this exist? What, like, more.
What problem is it solving?
Yeah. And again, not to harp on cuts, but try to do these without cutting. Just one continuous stream. Like single shot. Like, just do it, because the reason for that is when you're up there, and like me right now, I couldn't cut this. Like, this is just, has to be, by the nature of it, has to be thought out to some degree and has to be continuous. And that's going to be the same thing if you ever go and pitch an investor or go and ever pitch a business partner. Like, you're never going to be in a position where you can go, oh, hold on, I'm going to take that again from the top. And so it's very much, the purpose for this is to not only get you ready to stand in front of a camera if you ever end up talking to somebody on a TV. Has anybody here pitched to a TV camera? And I don't mean your phone. I mean like a TV camera that's 3 inches away from your face.
Yeah, every eyebrow movement gets like highlighted.
Yeah, with a ring light around it that makes you feel like your soul is being pulled into the black depths of the lens. Like, it's terrifying. I have a ton of public speaking experience, and that is still the one situation where I freak out on the inside. And it took me a long time to get used to it. But the reality is, should you guys continue down this path and launch these startups and become successful, you're going to very much end up in those situations not just again, but once a week. And so getting comfortable with this public speaking, doing it without cuts, really important. And doing it really in an uncomfortable way is also really important. Yes? Yeah.
I did include that information about how it could prevent carpal tunnel syndrome, but it came out very long. It was 3 minutes the first time I did it. So how can you actually avoid cutting?
Practice. Like, honestly, very much. It's just, you need to write it so you can say it in 5 seconds. Like, how long do you have to capture? Imagine you're advertising your business on YouTube.
Also, James, can I interrupt? I think it's also, you don't have to say everything about it. It's thinking what are the key takeaways, right? Because our brains aren't really designed to just hold all of this like nuggets of information. So you want to think of what are 3 key takeaways and kind of boil it down to that, and then you can expand on it later.
So yeah, if I were pitching you a cell phone, and I were sitting here and I'm going, this is a cell phone that I think you would really love. It has an OLED screen. It has 128 gigabytes of storage. It has a great camera. It's awesome, and it has access to the internet, and it has a chip that'll do this, all those things. Who really cares about that phone? Honestly. And if I was like, I have a device that has the entirety of the knowledge of humankind stored upon it, where you can connect with your friends instantaneously via multiple mediums, or talk face-to-face with a loved one across the world in seconds. It's only $800. What do you think? Which one of those is a more powerful story? Right. If you sell features, you're not selling anything. Features is just talking. Selling is going to be contextualizing it, making people feel for why they should buy it. And with that, that's my time. I got the red light going.
Hello. Okay. Cool. So,
Brian?
Hi, James. All right. So I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to talk through branding, but I'm going to also mainly try to help you guys talk about your why. So kind of building off of what James was talking about a moment ago, I'm sure a lot of you know how to talk about your business, like what it is and what it does, but maybe it's a little bit harder for you to talk about why you're doing it. And a lot of times that why portion is actually going to help you get people into your circle much quicker, right? So instead of selling features, you're selling the why. So basically, how your brand helps you connect with people, okay? My name is Ches Brian Ong. You can all call me Brian. And my brand gives me courage. All right, so let's just keep that in mind. It's going to come up again. So I'm just going to give you a quick background about myself, just so you know why I'm here. So I was a curious kid. I grew up in a toy store in the East Village. This is pretty much my life from childhood through even college, admittedly. So everything from graffiti, professional wrestling, every sort of music, comic books, heavy metal, art, what have you. So basically, I've had a lot kind of brewing in me that helped me figure out a lot of like my likes and dislikes, basically why I do things, right? So went to high school and I was like, okay, I want to do something creative and I want to go to art school. And my high school art teacher actually said this to me. So that's pretty disheartening, right? So I grew up doing art, loving creative stuff, drawing. I wanted to be a comic book artist, quite frankly. But then I went to kind of a fancy private school, and they kind of stress a lot more of the more practical things. So anyways, I applied to like 6 schools. 5 of them were business schools, traditionals, NYU, BU, and some others I don't remember. And just to spite my high school art teacher, I was like, I'm going to apply to one art school, and it happened to be FIT, to see if I can get in. So I got in. All right, I was like, no problem. I can get in. I'm going to go to this ugly school and follow my dreams in terms of pursuing something in the creative field. So specifically, I went into advertising design. I forgot to mention, before I could do that, I had to overcome the hurdle of my Asian parents. So my Asian parents were like, oh, that's not cool. So they're like, you can't do that, right? That you're gonna be broke and all these cliches, right? The thing is, remember, I grew up in a toy store. It was my parents' toy store. So my parents have always been entrepreneurs their whole life. So they're all about kind of doing your own thing. Mind you, it's a toy store, so it seems kind of fun, right? Like I worked there and everything, but I had to work for my toys. I never got toys for free. But anyway, so I digress. So back to this school thing. So when I told them, hey, I got into FIT, I'd like to go there, my mom was like, okay, as long as you promise that you can get a job when you get out. And I was like, all right, fair is fair. So I went in, did my 4 years, and I got a pretty good job, actually. After 4 years at FIT, advertising, I went to Deutsche Advertising. So that's where I started my career. I actually started there as an intern. I interned there the summer after my junior year as a graphic designer, graphic artist. And then I worked through my senior year, and when I graduated, my boss at the time offered me a full-time job. So it was pretty cool. I was pretty set. I got to work on some big brands, IKEA, Domino's, Bank of America, etc. Lots of big agency, like campaign work and such. Just to give you a frame of context, this is like the late 90s, so it was a while ago. I don't know. Who remembers the Noid from Pizza? Domino's? You remember the Noid? So that, and then Domino's came out. It was this, it was like this red-looking thing. So then Domino's came out with their own version, because the Noid was Pizza Hut. So Domino's came out with their own version. I actually don't remember what it's called. We actually went to Jim Henson's Puppet Factory to create the character. Anyways, I worked on that.
So it was terrifying.
It was terrifying, and you remember that?
So it's like a pizza grimace?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, it was pretty, yeah. Anyways, I was like, this is kind of weird. I'm like selling pizza with Muppets, basically. So then I decided to go into a branding kind of space. So I went over to Sterling Brands, and this is where I worked on these brands. A lot of people ask me what's the difference between advertising and branding. So really simply, advertising, you sell stuff. Branding, you help build stories and tell stories. That's really the big difference. A lot of times the stuff you do at from the branding stage will inform how you market and sell, right? So this is where I kind of started to realize, as a creative, I really enjoy doing this. I wanted to use my creative skill set to start building stories and telling stories versus just selling things based on marketing objectives or sales projections, etc. That just excited me more, okay? So this is the part of my career where I got to work on lots of big brands and impressed my parents. But then I got laid off. I got laid off right around the first big dot-com burst, which was around 99. 2000, 2001. I got laid off around there. I was like, what? So anyways, it was the best thing to happen to me. Getting laid off was actually the best thing because at that time I was like, I'm going to get in my car with a few friends and drive across the country and drive back. So 18 days, 18 cities, found a whole bunch of other stuff. But basically, I realized at this time when I got laid off, I was like, what do I want to do when I get back? Am I going to start looking for another job and such? And if I do, why? Why am I doing this? So at admittedly kind of an early age, I was like, why am I doing all this stuff? Because if you recall, I got into the creative industry because I just had all of that fodder, right? Comic books, music, art. That's why I got into this field. But then I was like, I want to start my own studio. Because at least if I'm running my own thing, no one can fire me. So at the very beginning, my why was very simple. I don't want to get fired, right? Like no one wants to get fired, or at least for me, I didn't want someone to determine my success, right? So before I actually started Spoon and Fork, my studio, I actually worked at 2 other places. I needed money. So I worked at an events company where I helped build up a design division, basically. So every time there's an event, there's always a creative component, whether it's designing the event signage, the branding for it, the tchotchkes that gets given away. And then I decided after that stop, I needed to understand what it was like being the client. So if you recall, my first 3 stops are kind of on the agency side, where I'm servicing a bunch of people. But then I wanted to make it a point for my next stop that I was the person kind of hiring agencies, so I could understand when I have my own studio, what do customers look for. So then I went to a furniture company called Mogu. It was a Japanese furnishing company. So that was challenging because do you guys remember those squishy pillows? They're really popular, early 2000s. They're still around now, but that brand in particular was the one that created it. So there are these micro bead styrofoam pillows. They're pretty ubiquitous now. Yeah, the brand itself, Mogu, is now strictly in Japan. It kind of failed over here, quite frankly. But I was part of that company to transition that brand from there to here. It was like a huge pop sensation there. So they got this influx of crazy cash, and they're like, we want to take over the US. So I was lucky enough to work with that team to build up a brand from the ground up, an international brand from the ground up in the US. But like I said, it didn't do so well. But anyways, so I'm going to jump into some of the work stuff. So that's kind of my background. So I want to talk to you about branding. Just give you a little context before we get into a couple of exercises. Just so you know what to expect, we're going to do two kind of activities so you guys aren't just listening to me talk. So what's the brand? First off, it's not a nice logo. That's usually the presumption at the very beginning. I need a good brand, so I need a cool logo, right? The logo just represents your brand. It's not your brand, okay? It's art. That's what the logo is. Some logos are more beautiful than others. The ones that are usually known are the ones that just have a lot of exposure because they usually have more money or some celebrity or something, some catalyst in the ether just kind of makes it in the public. So those become more popular, right? So, question, does everyone get a copy of my deck or not necessarily?
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Great, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go a little bit quicker then, because I do think some of these things might be helpful, and you could just, instead of writing it down, you could just look at the PDF. So anyway, so brand versus identity, two things. These are two somewhat interchangeable words, but basically the brand is what people perceive, so it's that kind of gut feeling when you hear about a company, or, can you see? Yeah. Okay, and then the identity is what you show. So you as business owners, founders, creators, you have more control over the identity in hopes that the brand that people take in or understand is at least in line with what you're hoping. The thing is, you can say any company name or any brand, and every one of us in here will have your own kind of opinion about it, right? So if it's a big company like Volkswagen, maybe at one time it meant something, but today it means something very different, right? And then if you go to a smaller company, so like let's say a local business like, I don't know, Momofuku, for example. That's become kind of a brand, David Chang's business, right? He stands for something, right? He's doing really well for some reason, right? So what we can control, or what all of you can control, are these collective elements that you create and show. So whether they're your product itself, meaning the business, whatever's tangible, the visuals. So visuals equals everything from your logo to your marketing materials, packaging, right? Experiences, so if your business is a retail shop, for example, what's the customer service like? Or what's the customer experience like? Or if you're an online shop, what's the user experience like? What's the user interface like? Because all of that should reflect your brand or your identity, right? And your stories. So stories can cross over to whether it's your PR, your marketing, your founding story, your individual story, your team's collective stories. So all of these stories start to form your identity as a company or as an organization, right? So what's an effective brand? Basically three things, right? There's some sort of consistent promise. You'll notice most brands, most companies will usually say or do the same thing over and over again. You throw enough shit on the wall, some of it sticks, right? That's what my history teacher used to say. It has to be worth it. It really has to be worth it. The thing is, if it's not worth it, no one's going to care. Because even if you hook them with their promise, but it's not worth it, they're going to walk away. Lastly, you're going to have both fans and haters. It's impossible to have everyone as your customer. I know a lot of times, especially when you have a great idea and you're founding something and starting something, you're like, and they ask you, so who's your audience? Who's your customer? And a lot of times people will say, men and women. You can't have everybody, right? It has to be segments of the general population Some businesses might have a larger net, some have a smaller net, but it doesn't matter. It's about kind of converting, not necessarily like exposure, especially in terms of today's world when it comes to social media. Social media has really put a spin on in terms of how you build your fans and haters. Really simple example. A lot of people think with Instagram, if you have a ton of followers, you're going to be a successful, huge business. Nope. It just means you have a lot of followers, but if you have, what's more helpful is conversion. So with each post, how many likes do you have? And then from that post, how many people are going to buy something? That's a much more accurate measure of success. Most followers are bots or people that don't even remember they signed up for you, right? So I want to put a slight spin on the word brand, and this might be more helpful in terms of this stage of your business size, right? I like to always tell people, try to think of a brand as your reputation. So a brand is kind of the jargon for a business. As an individual, it's your reputation, right? Everyone has a reputation amongst your group of friends, amongst your family, right? Like, I'm the one that likes to eat out all the time. I'm the one that hates wearing suits. I'm the one that laughs at every joke, right? So that's kind of my reputation. So if you start looking at your startups or your companies and ideas as a reputation versus a brand, it might be easier to start crafting your messages when you talk to people. So James kind of stole this slide from me, but I'll touch on it again. So basically, brand Y is greater than the brand X. Brand X basically represents the what. So when you're talking about features, what it is and all those details, like that's the easy part, because that's really what you're building, right? So the brand Y becomes more intoxicating for people to really kind of get hooked in, right? So successful brands have a purpose, and if you try to focus on the why, because it will consume and drive you. So hopefully that why will inform and drive you in terms of how you iterate, how you sell, how you speak to investors. Investors and customers are much more interested in you solving their problems and not necessarily how you solved it, right? So if you just tell people all the features of your fancy device, big deal, but like James was saying, if you can solve the problem of like, oh, I have a family like halfway around the world, and I can speak to them in like a button, press of a button, that's much more enticing, right? So really kind of talk about that why, and we're gonna do an exercise in terms of how you can get there, okay? So everyone's gonna kind of do this internally at your seats just to kind of warm up those brains. So forget your product, service, company description for a moment. I'm sure all of you have already written that down somewhere, somehow. Instead, ask yourself, what does it do that you're most proud of? So I'm just give you like a few seconds, just kind of think about that real quick. So what does it do that you're most proud of? And try not to think of features. Remember, don't think of features. What does it do that you're most proud of? Okay? Then ask yourself, so why do you do it? If those two correlate, the feature and the why, then you're probably on the right track in terms of figuring out if that why is consistent whenever you're going to be talking about your brand. A lot of times, the thing that you're most proud of might not be consistent with the why. All right, to give you an example, so a lot of people ask me, so why do I do what I do? Like, I'm basically a designer. I'm a branding graphic designer. People always ask me, oh, so how did you get into it? Why do you do it? So the most obvious answer is probably going to be like, oh, like I said earlier, I love art, and I have a knack for design. Most designers are going to say that. That's really straightforward. But the true why for me, I've learned over time, is that I really enjoy helping other people tell their stories through visuals. Okay, so because of that, that's I know why I do it, because if one of my clients is successful with what they're trying to do or sell, because of something I created for them, for me that's kind of my high. That's like, oh, I did a decent job, right? Okay, so all right, so everyone has their why a little bit in their heads? Okay, let's keep going. Stop selling what you do, sell the why, it's your reputation. People want to be a part of the why, your reputation, not the what. So I kind of touched on this earlier. A lot of this might start to sound like it's repeating itself. So I'm going to skip that slide to this one. So basically, hi again, I'm Chris Brian Ong, but instead of saying my brand does this, my reputation gives me courage. So because of my reputation, I've built up a reputation amongst my network, amongst my family and friends, where I'm confident in who I am in terms of how I present myself, how I talk about things, how I do my work, etc. Belonging. So this goes back to the whole, like, you gotta have haters and fans alike, all right? So if you have an opinion, that's way more important than being able to speak to everybody, all right? I'm not gonna get into details, but perfect example, politics, right? It's all about opinions, and so you're not gonna please everybody, but you're gonna please certain people, right? That agree or want to agree or understand your opinion. So as a company, you can do that too, all right? And by having an opinion, a lot of times it provides you authority. Like, none of you have seen my grades in college, none of you have seen my work, really. I've told you what I do, and I'm up here talking about it, and I'm telling you I know what I'm talking about. So in a way, I'm the authority figure just because of the context of this scenario. A lot of you are going to be that person too, right? So if your product happens to be a retail product or a new tech thing, you're going to be the expert. You're going to have an opinion on that thing, right? Org chart authority as founders means nothing, quite frankly, because you have no one underneath you. And even if you did, you're the main salesperson, okay? You want to try to inspire people to do more, make them feel something so that they'll remember you and want to associate with you, okay? So this is where you learn to kind of hook into what people love about why they're talking to you, okay? And lastly, you just have to kind of trust it. If you don't trust your own why, no one else is going to trust it, right? Don't lie. That's what this chart basically says. Authenticity is super important, all right? I know especially if you're getting started or if you're new to a field, like let's say some of you are architects, but you're creating something that's maybe a food product. So you're gonna be uncomfortable in the food space, right? But that's okay. Let people know that you're uncomfortable with it. In fact, because you're uncomfortable, it's what caused you to create this thing for the food space. You might be using your architect background, or you might be using some other skills, but at least you're authentic, because people are gonna call BS when they see it. It's really simple, especially when you start getting into whether it's funding conversations, even your customers and your marketing, people start to call you BS. So authenticity is really kind of key. It's not about truth, it's not about lying, it's just about being authentic. Because if you're genuinely kind of excited about something or not excited, or like people can read that off of you. This is my favorite thing in terms of storytelling. Show the seams. So how like James was saying earlier, there's a lot of founders that tell their failure stories. Those are the seams of their path, right? So if you show these seams as you go along the way, people get hooked in more and more, right? If you just think about the people that's in your closest inner circle, they know your seams. They know what makes you tick, what struggles you've gone through, what successes you've had. They've been there, whether it's high or low. So same thing when you're telling your own story, all right? Have an opinion, we went over that already. Consistency, all right? So as you can see, as I repeat certain slides, there's a lot of consistency, but it is one of the first things I talk about, right, with branding. It has a consistent message. All right, so how do we do that? So usually people are like, okay, so how do I write this story? How do I write about the why? So there's two ways. One is you start from scratch, and the other way is you kind of curate. We're in the world where most people curate. If you're on social media, raise your hand. All right, so we're all naturally curators, just by the fact that we all participate in that. So the fact that you decide to share a certain moment in your life or a certain photo, we're all natural curators. And that's probably the most, I wouldn't say easy, but it's the most accessible way of starting to tell your story. Whereas creation and from what I understand, most of you have design, some sort of design background of some sort. So this is a unique kind of audience for me in the fact that I'm going to presume many of you know how to create something from scratch. So a lot of it, try to take your process, let's say it's architecture, and apply that to when you're writing to somebody, okay? All right, time for exercise. I wanted to make sure you all had time to do 2 activities real quick. So can we form into 4 groups? Are we still 18 people? It looks, oh, okay.
It's bigger this year.
It is, okay. So why don't we do this? Why don't we let's do 4 groups still. Maybe 2 groups on this side and 2 groups on that. Say where you are, just kind of do your immediate circle. This way we're not shuffling too much. Is that cool? So maybe these 2 rows is 1 group, and then...
So about 4 groups of 7, basically.
All right. So just so we can quickly identify groups, we're going to go group A, B, C, D. All right? Just so it's easy. A, B, C, D. All right. So in each group, pick 2 people, 1 person, and these are 2 people that are going to talk at the end. So right now, real quickly, identify 2 people that's going to talk at the end. And you're basically going to be reading, so you don't have to worry about anything. Okay? All right, good. Everyone did it. All right. Okay, if you can't decide it now, just keep it in the back of your head that you're going to need 2 people. All right? All right, so what this exercise is, the purpose of this exercise is to practice writing or speaking with a why in mind, basically using what I call a brand lens. So to do that, and I'll give you a concrete example first so it's not so ambiguous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an image, all right? And let's pretend you're going to post it on social media. Doesn't matter which platform, it'll just be out there on the internet. And your task is to write a brief on-brand caption to accompany the image. Basically, it's a single sentence in your brand voice paired with a clear call to action. Does everyone know what a call to action is? Yeah? Okay. Call to action is basically when you tell people what to do. So at the very end, if you said, sign up today, or go to the store, or click here, those are call to actions. Okay? Okay. So this is just the practice one. I'm going to do this for you so you know exactly what you're doing. So this is a picture of a bunch of slippers or shoes, maybe from another country. Okay. So everyone is going to get an image. It won't be this image. Everyone is going to get a purpose. Everyone's going to get a brand lens, and everyone is going to get an objective. Okay? So in this case, let's pretend your group, your purpose or your why, is to ensure youth in our city have access to music and art programs. All right? So that's your business. That's your organization. And as an organization, your brand lens has 3 key attributes. 1, you're data-driven, so which means you probably support a lot of your messaging with data, numbers, etc. 2, you're empathetic, which means you feel for other people. You have a voice that's very kind of understanding and welcoming. And 3rd, you're an extrovert. So the tone might be more, yo, hey, right? So that's more of an extroverted type of tone. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to write a caption for this. Basically, we're announcing a travel rewards program that's now available to your audience. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple thing. So as a company, you're going to have to talk to people and try to sell them on certain things or have them do certain things. Okay? So I'm just going to show you the sample caption that I came up with. It's not very good, but it does the job. So let's pretend we did our work. So this is the sample caption. Friends, your travel can now help create music programs for 1.3 million elementary school students who don't have access to a music class. Dust off your travel shoes and link your miles today. Okay? So we're being empathetic by simply saying friends. You're including people in your circle, right? We're talking about the program itself right up front, that your travel can now help something. And then we're data-driven as an organization by mentioning that there's 1.3 million elementary students, school students, that don't have access to the music programs. And then basically, our call to action is to link your miles today, right? So straightforward, and then the dust off your shoes basically links to the image itself. So imagine this is going on your social media feed, it kind of goes full circle, right? Does that make sense in terms of what you have to do? You as a group will be writing this. So because we're pressed for time, and I understand, group writing is challenging and takes a lot of time, what I would like to do, so now before I go to the next slide and give you your actual task, make sure you determine one person that's actually doing the writing. This way not everyone is writing, all right? 2, you're gonna have one person that's gonna be relaying the messages at the very end. So when we present, that one person is gonna be relaying that caption, all right? Oh, I forgot, before you do that, you're gonna have that first person mention what the key, what was I saying? Key attributes were, okay? Questions?
If you're at all confused, guys, please ask, and people will be happy that you did.
So what will you provide? You provide them
Yeah, I'm going to provide it. Yeah, I'm going to provide you all of this stuff. So you don't have to come up with a scenario. All you're doing is writing, okay? I'm trying to make, because after this, you're going to do this for yourself. All right, ready? Go. And you'll have 5 minutes. So this is the image. Take it for what it is. We're all creative in here. All right, so group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. And this is the objective, the message that we're trying to say. So basically, we're announcing that there are career opportunities at your company. So you're telling people that you're hiring. That's your objective. But we want you to write that caption using your purpose and your brand lens. Got it? 5 minutes.
Till 1:44, guys, at 1:44.
The first idea is the best idea, at least for this context, this scenario.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on it. We're only 15 seconds over. It's good.
Oh. All right, time's up. Time's up. I'm sure it's great. Time's up. All right, I'm going to count to 10 and then time's up. How about that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, time's up. All right, the last will be first. So, group 4. All right, so just to speed things up, let's just hear the caption.
Standard speaker truth.
Oh, so just so everyone has context, so group 4. So the purpose of their organization is to provide small to mid-sized family-run farms equal opportunities to sell to supermarkets, and they are helpful, team-oriented, and a leader. All right, let's hear it. How are you going to hire people?
Okay, let's band together and lead the local family farm to reach the peak. Are you ready for the cloud?
Great.
Okay.
What was the last thing?
Together.
What? You're just adding words now.
Yeah.
Can you say the last sentence again, please?
Are you ready for the climb together?
The climb together. Great. Okay, good job. All right. Group number 3.
Come away to rural retreat if you're feeling down on your luck after you lost a pet. Build a lifetime relationship with new friends with opportunities and budget in mind.
I like how you squeezed in the budget in mind at the very end.
A little on the nose.
Yeah. It works. It works. Yeah. All right, group number 2.
Okay,
So you.
we
Yeah.
have our purpose and why is to conserve and restore plastic cars, and our brand lens is to be courageous, feminine, and a go-getter.
Okay.
So what we have come on is, ladies, you don't have to be a man to conserve plastic cars. Join us today Join in our climb to the summit today.
Can you say that last part again?
Join us in our climb to the summit today.
Okay, great. Good job. All right, group number 1. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing that first.
Ensuring youth in our city have access to music and art programs.
Yeah, so we did Hey Creatives. There are millions of young people in our community not getting an education in art and music. Do your part with helping our city summit the mountain of creative. Well, we didn't get to the end there, but
It's okay.
I don't know, something about summiting the mountain of
Life.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to relate to the image.
Right. Okay, no problem. All right. So, what was the hardest thing about this exercise? What was the most challenging thing? So I'm not going to grade or say your captions were great or not great. That's the purpose of this is just kind of flex that muscle of looking through a brand lens. Okay. So you were going to say what was the hardest part?
I think tying it to the image and keeping the purpose in mind was kind of difficult for our group.
Okay.
The randomness.
The randomness. Yeah.
To tying a pet to
The lost pet.
to career is like, okay,
Right.
why did I lose my pet? Why am I looking for a job?
Right. Well, the thing is, so you'd be talking to someone that empathizes with people that loses their pets. So you're really talking to maybe an animal lover, possibly. So that's how you can kind of tie that in together. So just because like the thing is like if your product is pickles, I mean you're not only going to talk to pickle people, right? I'm sorry, you're mostly going to talk to pickle people, right? So just talk to them, talk to those people, you know. Someone else wanted to say something back there? Did you? No? Okay.
But I mean, with me, like, yeah, I love dogs. And
Sure.
stuff, but once I lost my dog, I want to see somebody else's dog.
Yeah.
Type deal, and that's what makes it more difficult.
Right.
Do you have a spin for group 3 that you could share?
Do I-
We would be interested in how you would spin that.
To lift the spirits of those who have lost a pet. So stylish. So maybe what we can do is we can talk about, so stylish basically maybe you can reference a current trend, right? And then, so this is what I usually do. I'll look at the lens and I'll start coming up with individual points based on that, and then I'll come back to this. Because the thing is, this is never going to change, right? So you're always trying to lift spirits of those who have lost pets, right? That's your business. You're always selling this. So a lot of times you don't even have to mention this sometimes. It could be a real subtle nod. So budget conscious, you could simply say affordable, like use a simple adjective. Relationship builder, that's in terms of your tone. So tone is a really big thing when writing, right? So for example, like just because someone is funny, it doesn't mean everyone's comedy is the same. You could be a slapstick comedian, you could be ironic, you could be satirical, right? So as you build, so anyways, how would I do this? I'm just buying time, as you can tell. So maybe relationship builder, I'd be like, so my go-to is always like, hey friends, right? Hey friends or hey other people, you know, hey pet lovers. Have you lost? So you started it out actually the right way. Hey pet lovers who've lost something, who has lost a pet. Want to help others cope with that? I don't know the answer to your question. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like your thought process.
Yeah. Sorry, I know I'm really tight on time right now, so I'm going to come back to you. You've challenged me. I should do my own homework.
What's awesome is you're explaining your thought process.
Yeah.
It's not that you can write on the button.
Yeah.
When would you ever have to come up in 1 minute with the perfect thing?
Right,
You're
exactly.
telling us how to do it.
Yeah.
Can I give it a crack?
Yeah, go for it, James.
It's okay. Everyone knows how hard it is when you're in the valley of emotion after losing a pet. Join us as we work to summit the peak together by helping those who have lost their little loved ones find the perfect pal. I lost it. I'm so close.
With a reasonable budget. Yeah. All right. Good job. Oh, yes.
I just want to say that I think one of the challenges of this exercise is in a short amount of time, getting everybody's ideas.
Of course, yes.
You know,
Yeah, usually this exercise I do, it's usually a 25-minute exercise. So you guys did it in a fraction of the time. But I wanted to at least give you guys a little peek of what the process is. But yes, it is hard to do group writing. It's anything creative is hard to do as a group, right? It's like get off of my shoulder. All right, so this is for individuals. So wait, do we have time for this? I don't want to.
Yeah.
We do? Okay.
10 minutes, okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Okay, so kind of using the muscles that you just used, you're going to do this for yourselves now in a much more practical manner. So take out your pens, devices, however you jot stuff and note stuff now. And write down your organization's purpose or your why. Hopefully you already kind of have that figured out. Yeah. Yeah, right? Everyone, did they do that already? Like, oh no?
Do you have an example? Yeah. Because they might be thinking, what am I supposed to write down about what?
Oh, so the business, the marketing term is kind of like your vision statement. So like, why do you do this, right? So for example, Smuckers. Does everyone know what Smuckers is? Yeah, the jam, all right?
Comfort in a bottle, baby.
There you go. So their why is pretty straightforward. Their why is actually similar to that. It's like making delicious things in a bottle. That's it, right? And that opens them up to other things, right? So if they wanted to go from jam, they have peanut butter now too, I believe. So they're not pigeonholing themselves. A lot of times your why should leave your business a little more open-ended, so you're not pigeonholed into a certain thing. All right? Let's take maybe 2 minutes to do that. Oh, yeah.
So is why like the slogan?
No, this is not copy. It's not a tagline. It's not a headline. It's more for yourself. So if someone asks you, why are you doing this? Why does your business exist? What's your answer?
Like I saw my mom was struggling because she went to my sister's wedding and there was lots of dresses for bridegrooms, but not for the mother of the bride. So I created a business, for her. So then you personalize it as this beautiful story. It's meaningful. You're attaching emotion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like in the first Home Depot, the founder of Home Depot got up in front of all the sales associates, picked up a hammer, held it up in front of everyone, and asked them, "What is this?" And all of them were like, "It's a hammer, idiot. Like, it's a hammer." And he goes, "No, this is a porch. This is a porch. This is a crib. This is whatever your customer needs it to be. This is a tool for them to make their dreams real. That's what we do here." That would be your why.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Yeah.
So what I would
This is
add-
Jonas.
This is Jonas.
Hi, I'm Jonas. I'm the next one. I would think about it this way. If this part, your why, is changing in your business, it would be the reason why you say, stop that, I start a job somewhere else and stop this entire purpose here. Because this is why you do what you do, and if for whatever reasons you need to get away from this, you say, no, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah. This is your core inspiration for being here.
No pressure, guys.
So
No pressure.
Small problem.
And yeah. I know it's not much time, so first answer is the best answer right now. Okay.
I mean, this is from
All right, it's time's up. Time's up. All right, the next part. You can think about your why while you're doing this next part. All right, the next part. So hopefully this is legible. Back row, can you read this? These words? No? Okay. Can I zoom in on this? Do you? Oh, wait, maybe I could do it this way. Yes. All right, cool. So now I'm giving you basically a list of adverbs, adjectives, descriptors, etc. I want you to choose 3 attributes that would inform your brand lens. All right? So this is simple. Choose 3 that you like. None of this is set in stone. You're going to get this deck, remember. So when you go home, you can do this again in more with more fine-tuning and detail.
This is your homework, by the way. So.
Oh, there you go. So you're getting a head start with your homework then. All right. I will zoom in for the back row. Oop, wrong way. And let me know when I need to zoom back. Let me scroll it over. Choose any three, any three. And this isn't about you, this is about your company or your product, okay? This is not about you. I'm going to zoom over. It looks like some of you have made it to the last column. Oh no, cheaters, cheaters, cheaters. Oh, I'm screwed. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you go back to the beginning again?
Can you give me 1 second? Let's just let everyone go through, and then I'll scroll back out. Oh, actually, I think we get all of them on screen. Everyone can see that, right? Yeah. Just pick from here, just to make it easy for now. You'll be doing this in more detail at home, but just for today. Does everyone have 3? All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, next screen. All right, so this is the actual exercise. So you're going to do the exact same thing that you did as a group before. You're going to write a caption for an image. You're going to write a caption for this image, okay? So what's going on is your organization is having an impromptu fundraiser by hosting a dumpling party at a local restaurant. I want you to write a caption to accompany this photo to be posted on social media using your brand lens. So we're not going to review your answers. I'm just going to give you a few minutes so you can get started. But like Carl said, this will be your homework. So just use a couple of minutes to kind of get started. All right? Go. You're what? You're inviting people to it. Just say fundraiser. It doesn't matter. Just say you're inviting them to a fundraiser. All right, time's up.
Time's up.
Time is up. All right. Did anyone finish it? I'm just curious. I know it's not much time at all. Did anyone have anything written down?
Hey guys.
Guys, Brian's talking. Time's up. Listen up to Brian for a second.
Yeah. Did anyone have anything written down? Sorry, Sian. Can I hear yours, please? Just hear one.
Who could say no to a dumpling party? Come on, hip hop for dumplings, conversation, and more.
And what were your brand lens words?
That's all I got.
Oh, the from earlier, the brand lens attributes?
Generous, intelligent delegator.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to skim through the rest of this because I know I'm out of time. You're going to, should I do this? I don't know. Okay. All right. So lastly, all of this is kind of useless if you don't get in front of people. So there's actually an exercise here. I don't think we should do it here out of respect for Jonas's time, but if you can maybe do this at your own time. So basically, it's an exercise where we want you to contact 3 people you don't know, but you want to work with. All right? In doing that, for each of those people, you're going to write down
This is your homework, guys, so pay attention.
you're going to write down what you want to do with them. So if you want to collaborate with them on a project, if you want to talk to them about financing, if you want to ask them to be your mentor, doesn't matter. Just 3 people you don't know, all right, that you want to speak to about something collaborative. You're going to draft these messages. And I always say, just start with the first few lines. Don't write your entire thing. Don't think about the entire story. Just see how you want to get started. All right, draft the first 3 lines of that, email, text, etc. And while you're keeping your brand in mind. So don't throw out all of the other exercises. Make sure you keep your brand lens in mind as you write these first few lines. Concise, on brand. Lastly, you're going to contact these people. All right, so I think last year we used the example of Kim Kardashian, and James knows Kim Kardashian.
I don't know her.
Your besties.
I have her email.
Oh, so there you go. So you never know how you can meet someone, all right? So if you want Kim's email, you ask James.
I can find anyone's email.
So the point is, don't be afraid of who you're trying to speak with or who you're trying to reach out to, all right? I'm going to go through all this review stuff because you've just sat through all of this. Some reading suggestions, some books that I think are spot on. A lot of my brand stuff comes from this book. In terms of if you just need help with writing, I'm noticing there's a lot of international students here. This is actually a really good book. It's not about grammar. It's not about sentence structure. It's not about the technical aspects of writing. This is a great book about how to tell a story in a great way. Short stories, simple lines, etc. All right, so that's a really good resource. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. A few podcasts. If you had to listen to one, listen to this one, I suppose. How I Built This. It's like almost every founder's story is on that podcast. All right.
The Instagram one is crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And this is my personal motto: do the unexpected. When people ask me how to do good work, I just say do the unexpected. So hopefully all of you can do the unexpected and do something great and amazing, all right? And thank you. Any time for questions or not really?
Any final questions for Brian before he goes?
All right.
Remember to email him after and ask your questions that you're holding inside because you don't want to ask them in front of other people.
And if you really enjoyed it and found it valuable, definitely let them know that, because I think one of the most important things is to show people appreciation. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too. All right. Now you have stickers, so while you're moving your chairs, all right, everyone gets one. There's 2 different ones. Take one and.
In the meantime, I can talk a little bit about like stuff that's not as relevant, just some hints on my past story. Something that I really loved is the exercise that you just got from the last presentation, where you forced to actually reach out to total strangers, because I can tell you this will be your most important tool when you actually venture to start your own company. You will be forced to continuously just contact people that you don't know at all, because they will help you to move your company forward. So you got to get comfortable with that. If that's something you're not comfortable with, practice it. Start with easy steps. Start with people that are closer to you, but maybe not as close. So you get comfortable just cold emailing, cold calling, cold approaching people, because otherwise you will not be able to expand your network. You will not be able to grow your company.
Travis, on an average day, how many people do you cold email?
In a week, at least 20 people, probably. Yeah.
When I was doing sales, I would cold email between 30 and 75 people a day.
For example, I'm not talking about this in the presentation, so I can talk about this for now for a second. So one of the stuffs that we do right now, as you already probably know, we are a farm, so we have food, and one of our distribution channels is restaurants. And right now, I'm literally walking into restaurants I've never been to, just walk into the kitchen and be like, hey, who is here? Anyone I can talk to about our product? Is this something might be interesting to you? So that's literally everyday work in sales, but not only in sales. When you run your own company, you want to build out
relationships with investors. You want to build out relationships with potential partners that can help you get grants, get marketing, get whatever. So that's your currency, really. I think, is that the last person? And we can just start. Yeah. Quick intro, my name is Jonas. I'm originally from Germany. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called We Are the New Farmers. And we are an urban farm growing one of the most sustainable, nutrient-dense foods that our planet has to offer. It's the microalgae spirulina. And the reason why we started this a couple of years ago is because, as some of you may know, our food system is completely broken. It is actually the fact that most of the produce that we get in the supermarkets has less micronutrients than 20 years ago, so it's on the decline. The environmental impact of the agricultural industry is horrible. We actually know that the agricultural system is one of the biggest contributors to climate change. And the flavor is also not really as good as it used to be. I always use this example of a tomato. Whoever has a grandma, mom growing tomatoes in their backyard ever had those tomatoes, they taste so different to whatever you get in the supermarket, which are just those watery balls. And so we got to do something about this, and that's why we started all of this. And there is this shortcut solution, and that is the microalgae spirulina. So how many of you have heard of spirulina before? Great, it makes my job a little bit easier, a couple of hands. For those of you who haven't, it's a microalgae, meaning it's similar to seaweed, just much smaller. It looks like this, like a spiral, and it's packed with nutrients and vitamins and plant-based protein. It happens to be extremely sustainable. There's just one big problem with it: tastes disgusting. No one really wants to eat it. It has a strong fishy flavor, and that contributes to the fact that it's really today just a niche nutrient supplement for people to add to smoothies, and that's the point and the core of what we want to change. So we developed technology to grow this kind of algae here in the city, keep it fresh, and the main difference of fresh spirulina is it is very mild in flavor, it doesn't have this fishiness, so it's much more pleasant to use in a variety of different settings. Quick background also on why this is something that is now possible. It's kind of the intro to everything else in a couple of minutes. No one has done that before because over the last 10, 15 years, there's been a shitload of research into cultivation of algae for biofuels. Some of you have probably heard of that, like Exxon puts money into that. That brought down the cost, but not enough to actually produce biofuels from algae, but enough to actually grow something like spirulina, which is a food algae which has a higher price. So that's number one. And number two, as all of you are probably very much aware of, there's a huge shift in consumer demand towards more local food, more sustainable food, and that's really the intersection that we're working on. So this would normally be the point where I go a little bit into the tech part and tell you about how we got there. But before I do that, I quickly want to ask you a question. Give me just some ideas of what do you think is the number one reason why startups fail? Just anything, yeah.
Nobody knows about them.
So kind of a marketing awareness thing. Okay, what else?
Not enough funding.
Not enough funding, so run out of money.
It's not a good enough idea in the first place.
Not a good enough idea, yeah.
Well, going off from that, what people actually want is not what you think they want.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or in a different way, phrasing this is you create a product that is not really solving a problem for anyone. So the number one reason is really that you don't have what's called the problem solution fit for your product. So you don't know who you're actually targeting, who is your actual customer, and what's the problem that you're trying to solve for those people with your product, and your product is not delivering this kind of value. And as a result, people don't care. You don't get the marketing and awareness, whatever you communicate, just no one listens to it. You don't get the money because investors don't trust the business because you don't get any traction. So the starting point of everything that you do is always, do you actually solve the problem of your customer with your product? Everything else doesn't matter. As long as that is in place, you're on the right track. And I'm telling you this to give you a bit of the perspective of what we did, because we started on the completely wrong path. We started with the technology and developed a product without having any idea of our customers. So a couple of years ago, I was at NYU doing my master's program 3 years from now. Actually, not that long ago, but feels like an eternity. We had this idea of changing the way we grow food. And we got funding from the university to build an experimental farm in the basement of the university, looking at traditional crops and ways to actually make it work better. Some of you probably have heard of vertical farms, like those stacked layers of cultivation. So we were looking into this, and we're asking ourselves, how can we make this more efficient? And came up with an idea of like adding algae to the system as a byproduct to make it more efficient. So we're building all of this stuff out. We were actually spending 2 years on the technology, thought this is a great stuff, great idea, but we never actually spoke to anyone who would buy food up until last year. And that's when we started an accelerator program at NYU, and the entire focus of this program was that we had to get in front of as many people as possible to actually understand our customers and understand what we were doing. So we have this spirulina algae. So no one has seen this before in this shape, and we have no idea what it actually does for people, so we have to come up with a way to actually sell this to anyone. And what we did is we started a series of experiments to get in front of people, to talk with people about their behavior. And the actual starting point was forget about the product that we have and understand what people are doing today. And what you're seeing here was the very starting point of our discovery, of our customer discovery phase. And that was, we set up a little table, and this is Washington Square, this is a farmer's market and Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. We got like a huge like glass jar full of little spirulina health shots, and we just said, here, free shots of spirulina, come talk to us. And within 2-3 hours, we talked to hundreds of people who just, oh yeah, of course, I take a little free shot. And then they were telling us about, okay, why do they use spirulina? Where do they buy it? What kind of form do they use? What do they like about it? And so on. So you get this entire picture of people that know spirulina, that use it on a regular basis, and also why they're actually using this product. And you learn, okay, they are interested in the nutritional profile of certain things. They think it's this basically a multivitamin that comes from nature. They tell you that they learn everything that they learned about spirulina from their acupuncturist, their personal trainer, their mom. Like, you know who's actually influencing them on this kind of decision. But you also learn to talk to those people that have never heard of spirulina before. And they come to you and you're like, what the hell is spirulina? What is that? And you have to practice, and you have, I mean, this is basically just, we have no product, we have no brand, no marketing, we don't even have our company name here. So you can basically play around and just try different stories and practice a lot. And that was kind of the starting point for us to understand our customer and the problem that we're having with the product, which is it tastes disgusting. They don't like it, so they blend it up, they try to cover the taste as much as possible. The next thing for us was to understand what our product could actually deliver to our customer. What is the value that a fresh product would actually deliver to those kind of customers? So we set up the very same experiment with the table and gave out free shots. So we attracted lots of people that already knew spirulina. And then we invited them to basically design in front of us the label for a potential product that's called fresh spirulina. So all we did, we had a little like clipboard and had like drawn out like jars or whatever it was of a fresh spirulina with empty fields, and had little post-its with all kinds of value propositions that they could just tap onto the label, and then we could talk to them like, why did you decide that more nutrients is the most important thing for you, and superfood and raw is the second most important thing to you, and why do you not care about local? And you suddenly learn about what values are important to them, what values are not. And that's how we derived at all the stuff that's now on our packaging, and that's, well, all the stuff that's not on the packaging because people don't care about it, that's how we know that one of the most important things, apart from the flavor, is the actual nutrient content, which is higher. And that's something that we continue to test on an ongoing basis. So it doesn't mean that you stop at some point running any kind of experiments with your customers. Actually, the best companies continue to do that on a continuous basis, meaning they always have, from online shops have A/B tests on their website to marketing messages that vary. You at some point have a lot of confidence in knowing what works, but you always want to see consumers are changing, their values are changing, so you want to see that you stay up to date. So one thing that we currently do, 2 years in, is when we do pop-ups all over the city with partners, we create little smoothie shots using our product with completely different value propositions. So we have smoothie shots that say, here is a detoxify smoothie, or here is an activating and energy smoothie, and here's a balancing smoothie. And we give the option to the consumer to basically pick whatever one they like. So we know a bit more about what is it that they hope to get from the product, how do they use it at home, what customer segment prefers the detox one, and what customer segment prefers an active lifestyle and protein-based smoothie. So all I want to say here is you will start now going out, talking to customers, running your little experiments, but the truth is this is something that you probably will need to do for the entire lifespan of your company. That's kind of the little story of the experiments that we ran in the past. Are we on time? Okay, it's a good time now to talk a little bit about what you need to do. So I was told you will need to talk to hundreds of customers over the course of the next couple of weeks. And it's honestly the best thing you can do. You need to talk to as many people as possible. I think we've talked to over thousands of people by now just to get more of an idea of what's necessary. And the tricky part, though, is how do you actually talk to hundreds of people that are relevant to what you do, right? So I want to use a little bit of the time that we have to go through some ideas of what you could do. Maybe you already know what you want to do. Where can you find your consumers and what you want to actually test with them? Because just going out and talking to people will not get you where you need to go. What will get you where you need to go is actually defining for yourself what you want to know, what's the experiment you want to run, who do you want to talk to, and how do you actually decide whether this experiment that you just ran worked out when you got a valid result off of this. So you want to almost be a scientist on this, right? So that's where I want to stop for a second. This was like a lot of stuff at once. So I want to hear a little bit. Does anyone here already have an idea on how to get hundreds of customers and talk to them? Yeah.
Or just what I mentioned before about going on the subway.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were here, but just learning about what people bring on the subway and how we design the space to suit all the needs that people in their daily moving.
Can you say in one sentence what it is that you do, so we can?
What I do?
Yeah, the business idea.
Basically, to make suggestions to the transportation department about redesign of the interior space of buses and trains to better accommodate the daily needs of travelers, passengers.
Okay, so you're selling to the MTA.
Yes.
So in that case, obviously you should speak to the people in the in the subways using this,
right.
But you will also need to talk to MTA people to understand their process of how do they actually do those changes.
Right.
So 100 customers, and maybe I'm taking something that I shouldn't be saying here, but 100 customers is just giving you an idea. If you're selling to nuclear power plants in the US, you will have a hard time finding hundreds of nuclear power plants. but rather focus on those that are relevant. If your customer is the MTA and LIRR and so on, you should try to get into the door of those people and speak to the people who make decisions around like buying new buses and redesigning this stuff. I don't want to exclude talking to the people in the subway. I think that's important. That's a good starting point. But think about how you get into that area as well.
Yeah, I just want to say they had a huge event for the public about accessibility on the subways, and I got to see new buses and meet the assistant to the head of the MTA. They make events, but maybe I have to think about other ways of connecting and sharing what I've learned with them. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm working on Chinese language tutoring app, basically.
Yeah.
And my current thoughts are like working with people who are teaching this language right now. So they have, so it could be like an individual who's tutoring a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Or it could be, and I also know people who are part of a larger school, which is like they do Chinese teaching in China for foreigners. And I'm thinking maybe I could approach these two individual teachers and tutors plus these organizations, and using this sort of promoting this app as like a tool for them to improve their process.
So who is the person who would pay for your service?
Right. So there's two potential paths to it. One is that it could be that like we can take a cut from the tutors, like let's say because it allows them to sort of organize their classes better. But ultimately, what I want to develop are a set of tools that even individual learners can use. So there's both that B2C and B2B aspect.
Okay. It seems like the path forward seems clear for you to like contact the tutors, right? So do you know how to like where to find those Chinese tutors?
Yeah, so I'm already in touch with a couple people, and I'm thinking maybe I could look into sort of like university programs where you'd have people who are majoring in like teaching a language, teaching a second language, and they're likely to have, for example, even if you're just a student, you're likely to have other people who are like friends who you're teaching sort of like on the side, and that could be a.
That's a good starting point. One other thing that I think would be a good option is just try to be someone who wants to hire someone. And just pay a Chinese tutor for an hour of their time where they normally would tutor you, where they sit down with you and talk through everything they do and what difficulties they experience.
Right.
It's an expensive way of doing it, but that's definitely a good way of getting quality time with them.
Right. So one of the guys that's actually working with me is a tutor.
Yeah.
So
perfect. That's always a good starting point. But don't forget about the other side of the business, the people that actually look for tutors. You will also need to talk to these.
Right.
So that's probably something I don't know if you have Chinese classes here, just talk to Chinese students or Mandarin students. Does that make sense, like to get into this role? Okay. Want to like shift to someone else. Who feels like they have complete difficulties getting in front of 100 people within the next couple of weeks? Yeah.
I'm doing an AR game, so it's more like other virtual product. You can, like for my game, I can go to like just go online and post your idea and post your videos and what you have on like the forum or maybe some group, and there might have a lot of people to contact you, and you can post. Maybe you have your own group, so there is a lot of people will go to your group, and they can not only be your potential user, but also can provide a lot of opinions.
You say an AR game?
AR game, augmented reality?
Yeah, I think that's actually almost like an easy approach because you can give snippets of your game to people online and they provide you feedback immediately on what you want to do. I think one thing that I would encourage you to think about is there a specific demographic that you want to reach with this game? I don't know much about the game, you probably know more about what, like, do you want to reach the techies? Do you want to reach kids? Do you want to reach a specific segment? And think of like what are the games are they playing right now, and whether there's a way to actually enter those kind of group. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But definitely the idea of testing it online is perfect. You don't need to be in person for all of them. Sometimes this online interaction works really well.
Yeah, consumer and pro VR VR group has like 40,000 people in it, so you could probably get a few people to come out of that.
Yeah.
There are also game, which you probably know, game stores. I know there's one, all I remember right now is a block above Grand Street, but I can get that information for you where people go and play video games.
That's a sorry?
World Trade Center. There's a big like pop-up store.
Yeah. I also just thought about, I know at NYU they have a game studio for game development where they have a bunch of students that develop games. I don't know anyone there in person, but
I know Ken Perlin who runs that lab.
So for sure you can spend an afternoon there just like showing this to anyone running around that will give you feedback on it. I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Take it to a game convention.
If there is one in the next couple of days, perfect. The conventions, great way. And most importantly, make use of your student ID. You're not like starting a company. You're doing research on your student ID for a professor. Like the photos that I showed you here, we are wearing our NYU badges here because it gives you so much legitimacy when you say, I'm an NYU student, I'm doing research on this topic. Do you have like 2 minutes to talk to me? Completely different. And hi, I'm the CEO of We Are the New Farmers. We have this spirulina product. Would you like to try it? And like, no. Make use of that. Actually, wear a badge. It sounds so stupid, but it makes you feel like a researcher and makes it easier for you to approach people. Yeah.
I'm wondering what you think about like survey data and like observed data.
I think there's a huge danger in starting out just with sending out surveys and getting it back because people lie on surveys, people misunderstand questions, and you will understand people much better when you actually talk to them and see how they react to certain things. So at a certain point, surveys are nice and scalable. At a certain point, you want to move to that, but don't start with that. Start with something where you have in-person interaction or at least over the phone. With the exception with a game, it's a little bit different, but you get that point.
One thing about surveys is everybody who fills out a survey is the kind of person who would fill out a survey.
Right, yeah.
And so that tends to skew any single survey that ever goes out.
I was trying to think how I would phrase my question because I think I'm a little bit lost, but
Okay.
I think I'll just start with like talking about what we're trying to do. So our mission is to create a community for fun, art, and self-care, and we want to create the wow moment for retail spaces, and we want to engage with local artists and makers to curate their pieces in those spaces. And the problem that we think we're solving is that in a lot of retail spaces, it's hard for them to engage with the community, and especially with a small business starting up, it's like you have to spend so much for that space, and it's not easy. And so we can do this by making something for them. And the problem on the other side for the local artists and makers is that they too want to be in the community and showcase their work. And so we can help them have a stage for it.
I didn't get like.
But the final part.
Okay.
The ultimately final part is that we want to sell furniture to people and everyone.
Furniture?
Yes.
Okay.
Furniture artists and
okay.
designers.
So you have the artists on one side, but I don't get who's the other side.
Retail spaces or commercial spaces
Okay.
like cafes,
So here's the difficulty you set when you approach them. You want to explain what you want to do. That's one way of doing it, but there's one big danger that you need to be aware of when you go out and you tell people already the solution of what you think is their problem. And you should start with understanding going in. Don't talk at all about, oh, I plan on bringing in artists here, but rather tell me a little bit more about like, what problems do you have in your business when you think about your community here? Like, how do you see this business involved in everything else that's happening in this neighborhood, and what would you like to change about it? And see how they phrase it, see what kind of problems they have with this. You're smiling.
So I might end up doing completely different from what I would be doing.
Sorry?
Please keep going. Sorry.
So you feel like they don't have that problem, or that you feel like.
No. So I forget what I was gonna say.
Okay, so what you want to understand is what's the best way of convincing a retailer to open up a space to provide space for artists to come in and to like show their artwork, right? So what you want to understand is what value do you actually provide to this retail space. To understand that, you need to understand how they think about their space and what they would otherwise do with like an empty wall or like floor space or similar. So if one of their priorities is to get engaged with communities, you should hear that from them. You should be like, okay, well, how do you think about communities? How do you think about your neighborhood? How do you think about artwork? Have you ever thought about that before you like frame yourself as, oh, by the way, I want to bring in artists here? Then they probably will be like, I don't know if I want to do that. But if you understand, oh, I actually have this problem where I'm like, I wish I could draw more people in that come from this kind of demographic, and I don't know how to approach that. And well, then your spin on the story is, well, I have an artist here that comes from this kind of demographic, has this kind of interest, and that brings probably people into your store that buy things. So you want to understand what's the argument for the retail store to actually bring them in. Is that helpful? You feel like you still seem a little bit lost.
I want to make sure everyone gets a chance, so
Yeah.
if you've already asked a lot of questions, let people ask, please, guys.
Yeah.
So we're doing a cutting tool for students, basically focusing on the design field.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of T-square, ruler, and knife and compass. So it's really like a modular system.
Yeah.
And we found like it's kind of easy for us just to go out to students and ask them how their experience are, and then just share our idea to them. But are there any other customers that we can like go to that you would suggest, like individual designers or some design studios, any craftsmen? That's like so far that.
That's actually an excellent question. Good that you think about it that way, because that would have been my first response. Why do you think that students are the first demographic to adopt this kind of new tool? Like, why not someone who's really specialized on this one particular job, and for them this is really a game changer, while for students they probably don't have the money to invest in it. I don't know about the price structure, but like you get what I'm trying to say. So yeah, start talking to people who you probably will use this tool every single day, and see if that's actually another entryway. I don't know enough about the tool to tell you which one, but that's a good way of thinking about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm speaking too much, but I have an example of, I think what you've been guiding us in this direction. A group in China or Taiwan, I don't remember exactly, interviewed seniors using a senior kind of a park outside of senior center,
Yeah.
as to what they felt was needed, and they ended up with tables that had a hook for their cane, and it was a really participatory research and project the way you're describing.
Yeah. I will definitely share with you a PDF after this. I'm gonna talk to them. It's called Talking to Humans, which gives you an idea of how to actually conduct interviews without biasing people into your solution. going back to like if you approach this kind of group of elderly people and be like, I have an idea, we should build this playground here in the space, and they'd be like, I don't like the playground, I don't think that's a great idea, and I don't know what else. Then you ran into like a dead end. But if you approach people much more open-ended, be like, okay, how can we make this much more pleasurable? What is a problem that you're actually having? Then they guide you to it, and that's where the difficulty starts, right? Because being so open, forgetting about your solution to the problem for a moment, means that you need to be flexible enough to say, if all your like actual customers are telling you that this solution that you already came up with is not really solving anything for them, you need to be able to shift. And that's tying back to what the previous exercise was all about, understanding your why. Your why is not the product that you developed or the solution that you developed. Your why is a level above that. It's the thing that you're trying to achieve. And that can be achieved in many different ways. So that's why I said, like, think about your why as something. That's the only thing that will never change in your business. Your target customer might change. Your value proposition or your solution might change. But why you go into it? Because you want to create something for artists to get more exposure. I assume something in that world is probably your why is the rock foundation of what you're doing. Anyone else who still has some thoughts on how to get 100 customers?
My team's product is a building block for little kids. So already is that we're going to be interviewing parents or big kids in front of the elementary school or kindergarten. So I think it's sort of a special target group. Is there any suggesting in terms of like how what's the easier and like preferred way to approach them?
Can you tell me 1-2 more sentences about the actual platform?
You mean the product?
Yeah.
Well, it's a building block that after the construction, the material, every single block can move freely, so they can shift the shape or the size individually. So it's like it has less limitation on the imagination part. It's like it's almost like it's encouraging you to think more in terms of like the set that you're building right now.
So there has some kind of educational aspect to it as well for the kids. So that I would go down the same route as here. I would start with the question, is the individual parents actually your first route? Definitely talk to them, great idea, you should like talk to as many parents in that world, but I would also encourage you to talk to schools, talk to kindergartens, depending on the age group that you're thinking about. Potentially talk to childcare institutions. Anyone who wants to differentiate themselves by having tools that provide a lot of educational experiences might be very interested in that, and you might end up in a situation where your product is great for kids, but individual parents can't afford it, but then you can like still think about schools and so on and so on. Just widen the scope for a bit until you see which one of those groups is the most interested in the product to start with. Yeah?
Lean heavily on the you're a student thing, because that when you're talking to like daycare, say I'm a student, I'm doing research into this, that's a lot less threatening than like, I'm a grown dude and I want to talk to kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question.
Anyone not asked that wants to ask?
If not, I go back here. But let's see if anyone else is.
You might also consider conferences of teachers and psychologists and learning specialists. One of them is the Everyone Reading Conference. And the other, since I have a collection, having been a special educator for 30 years, I have a collection of different building materials. I don't know if this would work for you, but I can envision different options for different building materials in the way, I'm sorry, your name again?
Jonas.
Jonas suggested, and kids playing with the different materials, and you're observing them and getting parent comments and seeing what works?
This is fantastic because that's exactly how I wanted to kind of stop this and kind of like my final words. Your most valuable resource that you have right now is this group. Like you would be amazed to know like what kind of connections some people in the room have to exactly the people that you want to talk to. So if you are trying to get an intro to anyone, I don't know if you have any kind of board or however the communication in this group is organized, ask them. Like, we have a special educator here. That's a perfect fit for you. I'm pretty sure someone in the room knows the exactly right professional who works in the field and uses her tool, or someone in a retail space. Everyone has a broad network of friends with diverse backgrounds. Make use of that. That's the easiest starting point for you to get to 100 people, or at least to exactly the right people that you want to talk to. Yeah. And also, ask me, ask them if you want a specific introductions, like that works. Okay, I hope this was helpful.
I have a question, Jonas.
Sure.
Are we able to send this presentation to the students?
Yeah.
Great. So we'll do that, guys.
Awesome. It's just a bunch of pictures, but if it is helpful to anyone.
Thank you, Jonas.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to make sure that this is well documented for you guys. So we did a lot of stuff today. And we have a long time before the next session. So what would we like you guys to do between now and then? First things first, we talked a little bit about brand lenses. We talked about problem statements. So to start off for your homework, what I want you to do over the next week, and I know we're not talking week or 2 weeks, do it on your own time, but don't leave it till the end. Write up a draft problem statement. Write up why. Like, number one, why are you doing this? But then more importantly, what problem do you think you're solving? I want you to write that with your chosen brand lenses, like Brian said. And we'll send that presentation out to you guys as well. From there, come up with a targeting list of the 3 people you want to talk to about partnering, getting more information, and then the 100 plus, how you're going to find the 100 plus people you're going to be interviewing. And believe me, the more people, the better. Why do we talk about going out in public so much? Because public is uncomfortable, but also public is where people are. So feel free, if you have a consumer product, to go out into public like that and do that. Like, please. That'll get you 400, 200, 300, 400 people in a day. You're in New York City. We're one of the most populous cities in the world. You've got great access. If you're traveling over the holidays, you're going to be in a whole nother place. Go around, interview other people, get new perspective. Go out, come up with this targeting list. I want you to, from that targeting list, to come up with, let's say, 10 key findings. 10 things you learn off of that about your product and why you're doing this. If this informs your why statement, if this informs your product statement, your problem statement, great. If you find that you actually don't have a problem that's worth solving, that's also fine. We've had that every single year here. I've had that at least a dozen times in my life, where I've spent a lot of time, money, validating a thing that turns out didn't need to happen. Like, it happens, it exists, everyone does it. Feel free to get a little bit uncomfortable with this, dive in, come up with those findings, and then from there distill what you think your final problem statement is, your final why. That you've been doing these pitches, I want you to continue doing them outside. This time, I want you to do the pitch of your why, your problem statement with your why. I want you to do 3 of them outside while walking. I do not want you standing still while doing this.
Just don't run into somebody.
If you run into somebody, 10 points. If it's, no, I'm joking.
Don't be near a road.
Yeah. Don't wander into the street, please. Be safe. Most importantly, be safe. Yeah.
Is the time cap on the pitches changed from 30 seconds if you're adding in a problem statement? Or?
Well,
No.
here's a fun thing. What was the first thing that Jonas said on the first question that was asked after he finished his presentation? Can you sum up your product in one sentence? Do that, followed with another one sentence, why? That's it, 2 sentences. The whole thing should be less than 30 seconds. I want you to do this for at least an hour though, but choose 30 seconds of that hour. And that is going to be what we want for next time, because I want you, when you come back in here for session 3, need to have problem solution fit. You need to know that what the problem you're solving is worth solving, because at that point we build your business.
This is the schedule, James, so you can tell them exactly. See how
Yep. I learned how to read. Yes. Saturday, February 8th is the next session.
So we have 3 months, guys, so this is so important that you stick with it. We're going to be emailing you, keeping you engaged, and then when we get back, it starts quickly.
So the speaker for next class is going to be a friend of mine, Peter Raganetti. Some of you may have had him here. He's an industrial design professor here at Pratt. He also has well over 100 patents to his name. So he's a great resource when it comes to actually building things. So he and I are going to be going over your videos. We're going to bring you up here to talk to us about your products, go over all of those things, and talk through in detail what you're going to do next and how we're going to actually build these businesses.
James, could I just jump in really quick? I know all of you guys are going to have a bunch of questions going into session 3, but it'd be great if you could direct your questions to James and Carl, and then CC me in it, because I'm here to help you with logistics, but the experts are, all the speakers who are talking to you about things. So we will be sending you the presentation by Brian and Jonas, and you could get in touch with them, but kind of make sure you're targeting to ask them questions and CC me in it so we know what's going on. I'm going to help you with logistics, but the answers you're going to get from the people the speakers and the people kind of putting this whole thing together. So it'd be great if you could do that.
So yeah, please reach out. I know this last week I have not been the most responsive person. Full disclosure, I have a 4-month-old at home, and my wife had the flu. And I was working from home.
And you got a new job, congratulations.
Oh, and I do have a new job. Yeah, that's also good. But yeah, so this last week I have not replied to any emails, so sorry for that. But I will be getting to those as soon as possible. But normally when you reach out to me, I'm much more responsive than I was this last week. So, awesome. Does anybody have any questions for me? About the homework, yeah.
I'm sorry. So as far as video, what we gave in today is what we're going to use, or we can revise it?
No, I don't want to ever see that video again.
Not yours in particular.
No, I don't want to see any of these videos again. If I see these videos again, we're gonna have some words. And the other big difference here is that I want these videos from every member of the group. I don't want to have one video. I don't want to have 11 videos. If we have 30 videos here, it'll be great. We're not gonna necessarily play all of them in class, but I do want to have those up here. But also, you're going to be doing your pitch in person next time as well. We're going to do a lot next time.
James,
So
is Jennifer Lee also going to be?
Jennifer Lee is also going to be here. Jen is, she's amazing. She is a brand builder. She built
This is session 3, February 8th.
Yeah.
So is Peter Raganetti, who we already told you about.
Yep.
With 100 patents, and Jen Lee, who's amazing.
And Jen Lee. Jen Lee is I've known her for, I think, 7 years at this point. She built a community called Map and Move, and they've gone all over the world documenting their travel. And they go wild places. They went to, like, whatever. They go crazy places and eat a lot of really good-looking food. She also has been building brands and been a creative consultant for the last 6 years. So she's a great resource for how we take the things we learned here today and what you're going to learn over this and convert that into actual community building and business building. So we're going to have both creative and hardware building experience at the next one. And it's going to be very intense and very fun. All right? Everybody feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
Have questions?
Who's going to be here February 8th? You guys all going to be here? Yeah. Awesome. I'm super psyched about
That
it.
was just too much excitement.
Their heads are full.
Yeah, I just need to take a nap after all that excitement. All right. Thank you guys, and we'll see you February 8th.